So if you're a fan of Creed fragrances, one thing that I'm pretty sure you know very well right about now is that from time to time they do discontinue fragrances. And to borrow their terminology, they call it vaulting them. Well, here we actually have two vaulted Creed fragrances. This one here is Vintage Tabarome, which is a tobacco-based fragrance, not to be confused with Tabarome Millésime, which I also own, and I think I've done a video on it. And then we also have another fragrance called Royal Scottish Lavender. Well, this week, Dua has recreated both of these vaulted Creed fragrances, and they're selling them for a really decent price at the moment. I'm excited to give you my thoughts on these two recreations from the House of Creed, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin today's video and I tell you all about these two fragrances by Dua Fragrances, this one is called Origins of Tabac and this one is called Imperial Scottish Lavender. I want to start things off by mentioning that if you're a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Make sure to hit that bell icon so you could be notified whenever I do upload future videos to the channel. And of course, make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it or if you took something of value from today's episode. Now, when it comes to Creed, I love so many Creed fragrances from Aventus, Millésime Imperial, Himalaya, Silver Mountain Water, Irofa. The list goes on and on. Asian green tea is another one that I really enjoy right around this time of the year. Well, here we have one that's a little bit on the lighter side of things, and then we also have one that's a little bit on the darker side of things. Of course, this one, Imperial Scottish Lavender, so it's basically the same name, but instead of royal, it says Imperial. This one is a lavender-based fragrance. Lavender, spices, vanilla, and sandalwood with a little bit of bergamot in the opening. And then you have Origins of Tabac, which is their take on Vintage Tabarome. This one is a tobacco, oak moss, and amber kind of a fragrance. In any case, I'm going to give you all of my thoughts in regards to the smell. Let's start things off with a quick look at the presentation. So I suppose the first one that we'll start with is Origins of Tabac because it's just here to my right. And so I'm kind of going to do it from your left to right. Origins of Tabac. Now, the owner of the brand, Massam Raza, kindly gifted me a bottle of, or a little decant that has barely anything left. I probably used 5 or 6 sprays already just to get a good feeling of what the original smells like. So I am quite familiar with the smell of the original, and he gave me a decant of the other one as well. So this way I had the opportunity to do a true side-by-side because a lot of these fragrances are going online for like thousands of dollars. There's people who never smelled them before, and apparently they were both released in the 1800s. I'm not so sure about that, but let's just go ahead and dive in and smell them. So the first one is Origins of Tabac, and this is a tobacco fragrance unlike no other. This has a very rich tobacco note. Doesn't smell like a dry leafy tobacco. It also doesn't smell like a cherry moistened pipe tobacco. It's kind of like in between. But I think the thing that really gives this fragrance character is a lot of that oak moss that's sitting in the base. So you are going to get a really nice amount of oak moss, and there's actually also something a little sweet in the dry down as well. I looked at the note breakdown. It says amber. So amber accord could really be a combination of a variety of different resins, including vanilla, which is not a resin per se, but vanilla is used in the synthesis of an amber accord. So there could be a little benzoin, could be a little labdanum. And as I smell it, that interplay between the tobacco and the oak moss really reminds you of the classiest fragrances that a gentleman might have been wearing in the 70s or 80s. It really alludes to that type of a quality, and I'm really surprised at the strength of this fragrance as well. I actually did about 6 sprays of this on my t-shirt yesterday. I was just lounging around the house, running some errands in the evening, and it was booming off of my shirt, right? And I did maybe a couple on skin as well. The performance of this one is really, really good. And in terms of comparing it to the original, it's really hard to put a percentage on things, but it does smell very, very similar. I would say in the opening, it's probably like 90% similar. After you give it about 15 to 20 minutes to dry down, it smells more like 95, 96% similar. So a long-lasting, natural-smelling recreation of a now vaulted fragrance that's selling for thousands and thousands of dollars. I think they did a pretty darn good job with this one. And the next one is Imperial Scottish Lavender, which is their version of Royal Scottish Lavender, and this one has really dark liquid on the inside. I was actually quite surprised. This one I did not want to spray on my clothing because, yeah, it's going to stain the clothes. So this one I actually wore on my skin. This one is a little bit lighter, but I really appreciate the plaque label that's on the front here, and also the caps have received a little bit of an upgrade as well. So very cool. Let's go ahead and smell it. So this one is a lavender-based fragrance. Yeah, and you get a lot of lavender right off the top. Very natural smelling lavender, you know? There's fragrances that have lavender, but it's so mixed in with other ingredients that it doesn't really stand out. Thinking of fragrances like Le Male by Jean Paul Gaultier, there's lavender in there, but you smell the vanilla, you smell the cinnamon, you smell some of the other spices, you smell the resins, you smell all this stuff. With this one, the vanilla is loud and clear. If you've ever smelled real vanilla, or if you own vanilla essential oil, as I do, this is a really natural smelling vanilla, but you can tell there's a lot of other stuff happening in the dry down too. In terms of the spices, I'm not entirely sure. As I smell it, I'm trying to see if there's anything bright in here, maybe a little bit of eugenol, so could be a little bit of clove. There's a touch of sweetness, could be coming from the sandalwood. The sweetness is not as apparent as it is in Origins of Tabac, but I really love that combination of the lavender and the sandalwood. It just smells very creamy, very sophisticated, very classy, and they both smell equally classy, if I'm being honest with you. My only thing is that I would probably wear this one, despite the fact that it has darker liquid on the inside. I would actually wear the lavender-based offering in the hotter months. I can see myself wearing this well into October or something like that. And then starting in late October all the way up until spring of the following year, I'd probably end up wearing Origins of Tabac. But no matter which one you decide to wear, both of them are very long lasting. As I'm sure you know the shtick by now, they're concentrated at 33% oil, which is extrait de parfum. So these are fragrances that are no slouch in the longevity or projection department. They happen to do really, really well when it comes to the presentation. And in terms of comparing this to the original, again, I would say probably the same thing. It's in the 90s. It's very, very, very close. And I know Massam Raza does like to, with the exception of the original creations, he does like to reverse engineer fragrances. Very sophisticated technology is being used, a gas chromatograph or a mass spectrometer. You put in about 10 milliliters of the liquid, the machine spits out the formula of what should go into it, and at this point it's just a matter of having the connections with the oil suppliers that will get you that same ingredient so that you can use it in your recreation. And I know Massam Raza is very well connected with premier factories all around the world, so he manages to get these fragrances really, really, really close to the original. And he's also very upfront and honest about how close it gets to the original. I remember reading in a Facebook group post that he had made in his Dua group recently that there was one fragrance that he recreated that was only like 91% accurate, but he was very upfront about that. So I really appreciate that, and I admire when somebody isn't just going around saying, no, it's 100% accurate, like he'll actually tell it like it is. So I really respect that. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. Now, first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, well, you know how that goes. Not unique. These are clones. Overall smell is really good. However, they are old school leaning. So if you're familiar with the way that fragrances were composed and the way that they smelled in the 70s and 80s, the Chypres and the Fougères, that's along the lines of what you're going to get from these fragrances. Longevity, 10 plus hours for both of them. Projection, I feel, was a little bit better for the lavender-based offering as opposed to Origins of Tabac. I feel like with the lavender offering, I got about 3 to 4 hours of consistent projection. Maybe with this one, I got 2 hours of good projection, but it started to sit closer to the skin and they all projected at kind of like an elbow's length for a really decent amount of time. But the longevity for both is very, very good. I just feel as though maybe Imperial Scottish Lavender has some more volatile ingredients in there, thus aiding in its projection abilities, if you will. In terms of the versatility, Very versatile, very classy smelling. Both are very sophisticated. They do lean a little bit masculine, however, and I do think that while one is really good for the hotter weather, the other one is very appropriate for the colder weather. And I do think both of these convey a sort of formal tone, so I can see these working really well in a dressed up situation. In terms of the presentation, I like the new caps that they put on them. I know it's the same caps that they use for Encounter scents, but I think they look really nice on these bottles. And I love the fact that this one has the metal plaque on it. My final verdict on these fragrances is if you have had the opportunity, the rare opportunity, to try the original Creed fragrances after which these are based, and if you're a fan of them and you're looking for something that's 90-something% similar, really good longevity, great ingredients, definitely try these two, Imperial Scottish Lavender and Origins of Tabac by the Dua brand. And I think they're currently running a promotion. If this is going up during the weekend, then certainly they are running a promotion. But thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed my review of these two fragrances. If you did, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Also, make sure to hit that bell icon so you could be notified whenever I do upload future videos to the channel. And of course, give this video a thumbs up if I gave you the opportunity to learn about a brand new fragrance today, or simply if you took anything of value from today's episode. Thanks again for watching. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.